Hey, Decathlon Gamer, welcome back to F1 Manager 23, episode 50. We're at the half-century mark. Thanks for being with me. Thanks for sticking with me for that long. Let's continue on with the series. We are approaching the end of the season. It's middle of October. We're heading to Mexico next. So season really close to being done. And with 28 million, we've got enough to do another upgrade on the facilities for this season. And for that one, we're going to take the down on condition, still just level 3 suspension simulator. It's not the best. I mean, it's only directed at upgrades for the suspension, but it's going to make our suspension a lot better because we've really neglected it from time to time because the upgrades don't do much. This is going to make a significant difference on what we're getting. I mean, you're seeing we're going from 48 newtons to 80. We're going from 2.4% drag reduction to 4% drag reduction for 11.5 million. So that doesn't even hit too much into that 28 million, giving us plenty of money to get us through a continual stream of car upgrades through the research period to the end of the year and the research period till the beginning of the season, along with, of course, the off-season costs that we'll be encountering with preparing the new car for the new year. Each driver had a number of failed parts that failed the inspections, and therefore we're having to swap out to new. And we're getting down to some slim pickings, and I really don't want to be spending the money to swap it out. Suspension lasts a little bit longer, so as we're down to the final S3 suspension, we are going to go ahead and bump Sargent up to the S4, but that's going to make him a little bit faster. We don't want him to be too fast. Front wing, though, is the other area where we also have a problem. We're down to the final front wing for the FW3. This is going to hurt him instead of helping him. Instead of making him faster, we're going to make him slower. We're going to put him on the original front wing to finish out the year. That's going to help nerf him a little bit more, help slow him up, help stop him from scoring points. Speaking of, mission Let McLaren Beat Us has made so much progress that they went from well behind, like a good 35 points down, to just 1 point behind us now. So we've just about successfully nerfed ourselves to the point of letting McLaren overtake us so that we can successfully take that P7, which is the team goal, setting us up for next year where we're going to nerf ourselves with a weaker driver pairing and setting ourselves up for that long term of trying to get Flourish into the points consistently so that we can be competitive and we can slowly move up the grid on the merit of her as the lead driver as opposed to a far inferior secondary driver. Those last 3 upgrades that were finally finished and now manufactured enough so to put on the car, this now puts Flourish on 4th iteration of the chassis, front wing, and suspension. She's been on those for a while, but now 5th iterations of the rear wing, side pods, and underfloor. And then after now adjusting Sargent, we now have him on the 3rd iteration of the chassis, bumped down to that 1st iteration of the front wing, 4th iterations of the rear wing, side pods, underfloor, and suspension. So that is 4 upgraded components and 1 massively nerfed component for Sargent. I'd say overall, that's going to put him in a, well, based on the rankings, probably a slightly less competitive state, meaning we won't have to nerf him intentionally quite as much. The newer engine that he's going to have on this next race is going to maybe put him in the points, but maybe only just, as we're looking at 3rd, 11th. A number of seconds still. We're still aerodynamically good, even with that weak front wing, which means Flourish has a really good aerodynamic setup compared to everybody else. She's well ahead if that front wing only bumps us down so much. But the 30-year tolerance, the brake cooling, all of that's a little bit on the lower side compared to a number of the other cars. You can see the direct comparison where Flourish is that little bit further ahead on DRS effectiveness, 30-year tolerance, The acceleration's a little bit better in comparison.
We return once more to the hustle and bustle of Mexico City. Music is in the air this weekend, but it's not mariachi we'll be hearing. It's going to be the roar of the engines and the cheers of the crowd. Formula One is back in the very heart of Mexico City at the Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez. We're nearly ready to get started here. 71 laps, 17 turns. It's the Mexico City Grand Prix. Now I wonder, will things be going Lando Norris's way in this race?
It's a P2 start for them, an excellent opportunity, and no doubt they'll be looking to grab it with both hands.
And it'll be exciting to see just what will happen here today. This is it. Here we go with the Mexico City Grand Prix. And it's lights out and away we go.
Front row start for Norris. Sargent's P6. Florsch back of the grid. One stop race coming. Mexico City. We're going to speed things up because, well, we're at that point in the season where we don't want to do particularly well. 2 laps of underfueling means there will be some likely, unless there's a number of VSCs or safety cars, there will be some likely safety lift and coast necessary along the way. But as we get through those first 2 laps, get DRS enabled, we are 7th and 20th.
Okay, happy to manage tyres short term.
Those on the softs are pretty much guaranteed to be on a 2-stopper. Not that many cars have opted for the strategy we have. 8 are on it. The mediums are almost certain to be on a 1-stop strategy with the medium to hards. Those on the softs are almost certain to be on the 2-stop strategy. There might be a few on the softs that try to extend. Florsch is off the pace here. Her engine is weak, and we don't have another engine, so I don't think Florsch is going to be very competitive here in these last few races. She's not going to score points again this season from the looks of it, but again, it's not worth it to waste the money on new components. But then again, there's still, is it 2 more races or is it 3 more races to go after this one? Hard to say. I'll have to double check where we're at on the calendar. Either way, Sargent, this is the last kind of day where he's got the new in decent shape components, and he's got a couple upgraded parts and 1 downgraded part where I think all in all he'll be on the edge of the points, and that seems to be where he's sitting in 7th place. 20 laps already in. Cars are beginning to pit. Florsch just competitive enough that, you know, she's ahead of a couple of them for now, but with less power, she's definitely off pace. For now, Sargent up to P3, Norris is P2. And now they run in a 1-2. We're 6 seconds behind him. Florsch, meanwhile, sits in a P16 with everyone behind her having already pit, and they're coming forward. Sargent down to P4. A couple cars have overtaken him, those on the 1-stop strategy, which already puts them virtually ahead as we have a pit stop to make here soon. And then they still have another pit stop to make further down the road. But that strategy has essentially already been covered off by at least a couple of cars. Sargent pulls off into pit road. It's a short entry. You don't lose as much time, but it's a very long straight. So you almost lose more time after the pit stop than you do. 2.566 for Sargent on his stop as he rejoins the track. Down in P13, so he has been undercut quite a bit from the P7 that he was in prior to everyone else's pit stop, so much down the order. As for Florsch, she's going to come in. It's a good stop, 2.472, and she's going to rejoin the track. No surprise by this one in last place. But again, we are now done for the day, and much of the field still has another stop coming. One of the issues we have, though, going forward is that we're on the hard compound till the end of the race, and others are on mediums now and going to be on softs again later. So they're going to have quite a bit of pace advantage. But the two strategies come out almost identical in terms of overall race time, in terms of the difference of the two compounds. So we'll see if that holds true. But Sargent all alone, 5 seconds behind anybody behind. So he lost quite a bit of ground from his 7th place. He's a good 10 seconds down from where he was. That part's a little worrying. That is definitely a little worrying. And speaking of, look who's 6 seconds ahead of us still and stuck behind traffic. That's Norris. Will this hurt his chances of the points? But like us, he's done with pit stops for the day. Florsch is already on the verge of being a lap down. Russell not far behind her. I'm half tempted to get her a new engine for this next race, depending on how many races are left. But if it really is just 2 races, no bother. We'll suck it up. She won't score points in those last 2 races, and for another matter, Sargent's gonna go backwards a little bit in the last couple of races as well, as we'd be looking at the extra wear on the components that he has on the car now. But if we can get out without any additional money spent, if we can get out as is and stop ourselves from scoring more than maybe a couple points today, and you can see those are pitting now. Norris is up to 6th, so we're up to 9th. Get around Stroll for P8 with 20 laps to go. The fuel has slowly got better, but there has not been a single lockup, spin out flag of any kind today. Not one, as we just got a very brief yellow. Didn't see who or what, but Albon with the lockup, first of the day. And we're getting into that later phase where we are going to have to lift and coast. So currently P8 for Sargent. Florsch is a lap down in P20. She's not going to have to do anything, but we want to conserve that engine as it is. So she'll go ahead and start her lift and coast program and finish up where she is in P20, taking it easy the rest of the day. But as for Sargent, we've got to do some lift and coast to get the fuel right. I don't mind being comfortable in P9. It's going to help with morale. It's going to look okay on beating, a few teams for the day, being ahead of both of the AlphaTauris. Oh, Norris just pit again. No, he's taking himself out of the points. That's not what we wanted. That's not what we were looking for. I didn't think he was going for a 2-stopper. Being on the strategy we had, I figured Norris. He's on softs though. We're the only ones on the hards. Nobody else is opting for this strategy. What the heck? Florsch just ran wide. Fuel's almost right for Sargent, by the way. Sargent's nearly lapping Florsch, so this is the difference when we nerfed him with weak components and we saw that she almost beat him. Now it's the opposite. He's got good stuff, she's got weak components, and for the first time in a long time, it's got us back in the scenario of her nearly being lapped. And of course, there's been so many blue flags as she's been lapped by so many different cars. She's now just been blue flagged by Porsche, Ocon, and Gasly in the last little bit. 3 cars all going by her, and that slowed her up. She lost a lot of seconds there. Norris is catching up to Sargent, though, so that's good. We want him to overtake us. I'd love for us to get 1 point and him to get 2. And for us to be level heading into the next race. We are level. Fuel's good. Go ahead and go balanced. Give him a chance to catch us. We're not even going to fight it. In fact, conserve. Conserve it for the next race. I'd like Norris to get up and around us. The goal is for them to beat us. So he's got every advantage right now. Let's keep an eye on that gap. Now at 4 seconds with 4 laps to go. As we finish up another lap, now 3 to go, it's down to 2.7, so he gained 1.3 seconds on us that lap. That's good rate. That means he should be able to overtake us, maybe even with a lap to spare. As we do come up closer on Florsch here. It looks like she's going to get blue flagged and get out of the way of this. Norris within a second. Still 3 laps to go. Now 2 to go, so we're at 2.5. We're at 2.5, and Norris has overtaken Sargent. There you go. Serve the components. 11th place is not coming. We've got our point for the day. Flourish has been lapped by Sargent and has been overtaken by Norris. Ideal scenario that. Not ideal that Norris went back. He was on the front row. He was running near the front. I didn't figure he was going to hang on to P2, but I thought maybe he'd get P4 and get McLaren that position ahead of us to where we could maybe, put on the newer front wing for Sargent in the final race or two. But at this stage, if he's scoring 2 points and we're scoring 1, all that's doing is making us level in the constructors and does not pull them ahead of us just yet. So work yet to be done in mission let McLaren beat us. Final lap begins for both drivers. Fuel is good and then some, but again, we're taking it easy to ease off the burden on the components. Russell takes the win in the Ferrari.
First over the line.
Looks like Ferrari might be winning the constructors this year, the way things have gone. Red Bull took their foot off the gas a little too early. Sainz does get P2, but Leclerc is going to be P4 with Verstappen P5. Bottas gets the last spot on the podium, but Ferrari beating Red Bull by a little bit today. Both drivers finishing just ahead of their counterparts. Sargent does get the last point. We do have the tiebreaker over McLaren. Both teams have had podiums but not wins. Whatever the tiebreaker specifically would be, highest position obviously, but second or third, each of us, whatever the difference may be, we have the tiebreaker as it stands. So we are still ahead of McLaren for now, but we've got it all the way down to level in just 3 races. There's 3 to go. Tanaka is now up to a 54 overall. Her bonuses for getting those FP1s is helping out.
Our F1 season brings us to Brazil for the Sao Paulo Grand Prix. The Autodromo Jose Carlos Pache has been a staple of the racing calendar for decades, and soon we'll once again be watching the best drivers in the world give it their all. Interlagos Sector 2 is a maze of twists and turns, demanding the highest downforce. Sectors 1 and 3 are high speed, however, giving drivers plenty to keep them busy around this thrilling track.
It is 3 races left. At 35% for the engine, I just don't think she's going to make it through these last 3. Maybe, just maybe, she'll squeak it out in the end, but she's going to be so far off the pace. I don't think I can do that to her. We're going to cough up the $5 million for a new engine for Flourish for the last 3 races. And since we're at it with the ERS beat up and gone, we're going to be starting from the back. We're going to go ahead and spend the 2.5 to do the same for the ERS. Though we're going to let her gearbox get her through the remainder of the season, even though it's at just... Actually, it's only $1 million. It's only $1 million. If we're going to give her new components, just give her a chance to do what she can do. We're going to give her a chance to do what she can do. Sprint weekend. They only got a single practice session, so trying to lock in is obviously rather difficult, and you can see that really she's in good shape other than the traction side, the anti-roll bar, that we're going to have to push to give her a little bit more, and everything else is going to have to kind of just settle into roughly where it was.
24 laps around Interlagos awaits these drivers in what should be an entertaining sprint.
The 100-kilometer dash around Sao Paulo is typically packed full of overtaking opportunities, making for a thrilling event as the season nears the end.
But just who comes out on top when the checkered flag flies? 24 laps around Sao Paulo in today's sprint. And it's lights out, and away we go.
No matter what we do in this sprint, Flourish is still going to go to the back of the grid. And Sargent, well, decent start position. And we've got a yellow flag early on in this one. Multiple cars have crashed in presumably the first corner. 100% on the Aston Martin. did not give Russell racing room. Tried to cut across the track and drove straight into him. He's way up on the curb. Already nowhere for him to go. It was Russell and Porsche running 1-2. It's going to get called a racing incident. It's turn 1.
Increase, lift and coast.
Alright, after that start, we are P10, P19. We are on the softs. Is everyone on the softs? No, everybody else opted for the mediums. Holy crap. I did not push in the first 2 laps because I knew these softs weren't going to do terribly well in this race. And so I backed off. And apparently the softs are making us slow? That's weird.
And here we've got a yellow flag.
Another crash.
You're okay.
Florsch was involved in it, along with a Haas. Major front wing damage. We'll go ahead and pit. And do we want to waste a set of tires? We'll save them for tomorrow.
Box.
We're already back. We're already carrying the penalties that are going to start us even further back. So just the wing change here. Gio got the penalty, so it was his fault, not ours. I missed the highlight on it. Nice, we have proper animation of wing changes now. 8.5 seconds for that to be done. It's going to bring us back out in last place, but we're going to cruise towards the finish. It did put a little extra burden on the tires, but not much. Fuel's already mostly right for both drivers, so now just cruising to the finish. Gio is well off the back as well, and seems to be getting further back. We seem to be closing him down, but I'm not sure we're going to cover off the 20 seconds we need, or 15 seconds because of the penalty. Sargent, meanwhile, is just hanging out in 10th and or 11th here. Norris is hanging out in 8th. That's, of course, the guy we want to keep an eye on. A lot of penalties in the field that'll all be assessed after the sprint. Final laps here. Sargent, P10, will not pick up points today. Down to 31%. Getting into the danger zone. 3 laps to go. We could end up seeing a puncture. Both drivers struggling to reach the finish on this one. Things could go horribly wrong. Final lap. Terminal tire damage. Florsch will end up getting lapped here then. Let's rev the engine.
We'll start the lift and coast now.
Go ahead and go to harvest. There is us getting lapped.
Back up.
So she'll take the checkered flag here shortly. Now it's just a matter of trying to get out of the way. And we are getting out of the way. They're just not overtaking us terribly well. That's on them. This could help Sargent out. Sargent has caught Florsch. Gets around.
Max Verstappen over the finish line to win the sprint.
Holds off. No, wait. We haven't reached the finish line yet. Ocon gets us. Ocon gets us at the finish line, so we finish P11. We got held up a little bit by Florsch, and Ocon did not. Ocon had us nearly overtaken, just trying to overtake Florsch, and ended up getting enough of a run to get to the line before us.
Checker flag.
So be it.
Who will win? Only time will tell. Here at the Sao Paulo Grand Prix. And it's lights out, and away we go.
It's the Aston Martin of Porsche who caused a collision that benefited from that collision, who starts on pole today. But here we have now Florsch with so many penalties, and of course having been a lap down, that she starts right from the back of the grid. We don't want to put these new components under stress. This is going to be more about the next race, not necessarily today. So we're going to have her back off right away. But it's a good thing that we did save that extra set of tires, even though she punctured at the end, even though she cost Sargent a position at the end. And really, it's 2 positions, because Ocon starts 2 positions ahead of us. A penalty slotted Leclerc in between us. But Sargent whatever. P9 is fine. Norris is P5. We want him ahead of us. So, you know, we have a mission. And as much as we hate to lose on purpose, we're losing on purpose. It's 3 races. We'll be fine. Sargent not going out. It'd be nice if McLaren secured enough points that we can go out and go for it in the last race. However, we're not going to spend money on Sargent. Like, I just did it for Flourish. She's the driver we actually care about in reality, even though Sargent has put us in the position we're in. But again, he's been almost too good, right? We've had to intentionally nerf him, which is one of the main reasons why we've taken on a weaker driver for next season. So we don't have to do that, so that we can go out and race and do as best we can. Anyway, this is going to almost certainly be a quick race. Gio, who hit Flourish in the last one, is now to the back of the grid after spinning out there. Difficult track for him, I suppose. Soft, medium, soft is the order of the day. Much faster. And how many cars are doing soft, medium, softs? Not many. There's not too many cars that have those components available. So Sargent up to P7 in the short term, overtaking some cars because he's got a little extra pace. Underfueling wasn't too hard in the sprint race and appears not to be too difficult today either. As we make another overtake, it's Norris. Not exactly the guy we want to be pulling ahead of, but it is what it is. Magnussen first to stop. Pit window is just entering, so he must have been on used softs. We're down to 34% here. These softs do not last terribly long. Got 2 laps to go in theory. Not sure we can make it 2 laps. I think we're gonna have to pit a little bit early. We do have an extra set of mediums if we have to adjust later on in the race and go medium instead of softs again. Sargent 2.543 on the stop. Flourish getting this lap. Flourish on pit road. This is her optimal lap now, so she's 1 lap early. Sargent was 2 laps early on his stop. 2.576 for her. This was already starting to offset both of them, but the mediums could maybe help us get there. And of course there was that extra push and a lot of extra traffic. As things clear out, you get some clean air as we don't push through a stint. Hopefully that will put both of the drivers in a somewhat better scenario here, and we don't have to worry about the fact that we're going to have to run a little bit longer on the mediums. Pitting earlier than others, of course, is impacting race strategy for now. Sargent is up to P5 as we speak here, and Flourish is P17, having been overtaken by a couple cars behind her. Otherwise, she would be P14, but she is running in the mix today. That's what we wanted to see. Getting her up into the points would have been nicer, but if she can, finish the day P15 or something like that, we'll take that as a win. We have a crash, and it's Flourish, but she is continuing on. So
there's been a crash. So let's take a look at the replay.
She was on her
own. It was
own.
the Williams driver we see there. The car makes contact, and that's one surefire way to put a dampener on.
No idea how that accident just happened. Is that just the beginning of the brake zone? 25% though, so she's gonna have to pit. Front wing is what? How bad is it? Well, I suppose we want to change it either way. Will Hartz get her to the end of the race? Probably not. We'll go to another set of mediums for now. Well, so much for being competitive today. Flourish on pit road for a second time. It's going to require a third stop. Wing change. 8.476. It looks like we actually had a problem on the right front during the change. Or they just hung back because of the wing. Waited for them to disconnect the wing, then got in, did the tire change. Then, as the new wing got reconnected, they got out of the way. Yeah, these mediums will not make it to the end. So she will be in once again, and that puts her down to last place. For now, though, only 6 seconds behind Gio. So actually, she still has a chance to finish above last place. After that first round of pit stops, we've undercut a number of cars, and Sargent finds himself up in P5. Norris is down in P9. Stays looking worse and worse. We were hoping for a competitive flourish. And then she goes and makes a mistake, and she's nearly a lap down. Probably going to tell her to start pushing now. The tire wear is not going to be a problem, as she'll be switching back to the softs anyway. But we want to stay out of the blue flag sort of territory that she's starting to get closer on, as other cars are beginning to pit here. But Sargent, we were hoping for him to get beat comfortably by Norris today. We're seeing the opposite at the moment, as Sonoda pits and comes out behind, well behind Flourish. Flourish has just about caught Gio now. Gio just spun. He had no damage at all. So she's beating him pretty comfortably on merit. Sargent following Russell into the pits. They both go in at the same time. There's an Alpine there on pit road as well. And there's a problem with the right rear. 4.462. Of course. Almost a good thing though, right? We don't want Sargent to do too well, but the last thing that I want is problems with the pit crew, because that's an area where we're making gains. For every flippin' mistake that happens, it's a setback on those gains, because it adds that extra fatigue that we then have to turn around and manage. Sargent now P8 following that pit stop. He's good to go till the end of the race. Will have to lift and coast. Yellow flag. Multiple cars have crashed. Been a busy day on that front.
There's a yellow flag now.
Flourish is suddenly down to 47%. Was she involved in this? Or is she just at that point of her tire wear? I guess she's at that point of her tire wear. As the Alpine...
I cannot believe it.
It's more the Alpine's fault than Sainz, but that's really on both drivers. They've made the overtake. They cut to the inside. Sainz doesn't back out. Keeps his nose in. Alpine cuts across. Hadn't really finished the overtake. But meanwhile, Sainz had every opportunity to lift just a little bit. You see it a lot with drivers doing that, intentionally coming across. It's get out of my way or yield or crash out, right? Max Verstappen started that crap. It's now a pretty standard part of racing in a lot of drivers' books. Bottas picks up the penalty in the Alpine for cutting across, so he gets the penalty. Unrealistic to how it works in real life, but it's the right call. So Sargent P6 and all over the back of Russell right now. And then Flourish is P17. She's hanging in there. She's down to 44%, so her pit stop will come fairly soon. Back to the softs, but that's going to drop her back down the order once again. And fuel's still not right for either driver, so we are going to have to go through a lift and coast program here fairly soon. Flourish was back on the lead lap, but she's going to lose that distinction here fairly soon with that pit stop coming. I think we're going to take maybe 2 more laps or 1. The later you push it, the more she's able to focus then on pushing on the final stint as well. So it's kind of one of those later better. From P18 and dropping back from De Vries, Sonoda is definitely going to overtake her with that pit stop. She'll have a real chance with Gio, but I'm not sure she's going to finish any higher unless others have problems. Let's hope for a clean pit stop here. 20% advantage over Sargent, who's on the same compound, so that's that extra room that we have to play with. Okay, stop. 2.727. No mistakes. Still ahead of Gio, and comes out with her teammate right behind him. Sargent still P5. Holy crap. Bottas might have to pit again because of the penalty, the mistake. 20% lower on the tire wear compared to everybody else around here. But she's about to be blue flagged, so she's going to have to go backwards. Multiple cars have crashed once again.
And here we've got a yellow flag.
Busy day on that front, but every single one of these incidents, outside of Gio spinning and Flourish hitting the wall, and now Maloney and whoever the Alfa Romeo was, all of them have been on-track incidents where they just came together and touched, and there might have been some car damage, but otherwise there was zero time loss or maybe tenths of a second. That has led to a couple seconds lost for those two drivers, but they're immediately able to continue on. Been a strange day for that, but we are up to P4 right now. Sargent overtook Russell and has been re-overtaken here. That blue flag is going to drop Florsch behind the Ferrari there. Oh, that's because that's Gio. That's Gio, who just overtook us forward position. I don't necessarily want to be battling it out for P19. Let's go ahead and go conserve, save those components for the next race, where we hopefully make no mistakes. As much as I'm trying to let Russell get around us, so far that's not been the case. Driving conservatively, we've gotten ahead of Russell and stayed ahead of Russell. We've not pulled away from him, and Norris is 3 seconds back. But we appear to be just a little bit too fast, which is weird because, you know, it's Russell, it's the Ferrari. With Sainz down in 9th, Ferrari looks to outscore Red Bull yet again today, but at the moment we're looking to outscore McLaren, which is definitely not ideal. Magnussen 2 spots out of the points. We did have the... Okay, we're going to overtake aggression low, rarely defend, avoid high-risk curbs, drive in clean air. Sargent overtakes Russell again, even though we're trying desperately not to as we begin the final lap here, but go harvest again. Go conserve. Come on. Russell, you can do it, bud. Florsch, head of Gio. She begins her final lap.
And we think you can reduce lift and coast.
We're not going to put any stress on the engine here, but we'll use the battery and push to see if she can at least finish 19th. And meanwhile, Sargent, as much as I'm trying, Russell is just struggling here. What? He's at 35%? Like, I'm doing everything I can to nerf Sargent so Russell can get by us.
Over the finish line,
and it's just not going to happen. We're going to finish P4. Ouch. We did not nerf Sargent well enough. Florsch does beat Gio in the end and takes P19. Norris completes his P6, but Magnussen will not get into the points.
Okay, check a flag.
So in the drivers, Verstappen has a pretty comfortable lead with 2 races to go and no more sprint weekends. So Max Verstappen has just won the Drivers' Championship. Sargent is 7th, 14 points ahead of Gasly, 19 ahead of Lando Norris. In the Constructors, Ferrari only lose 2 points to Red Bull today, so they just about kept it there, and they have what is that, a 48-point lead with 2 races to go. It's not over, but they're looking pretty good to have the first non-Red Bull constructors in this series. Alpine is pretty well locked into 3rd. Aston Martin is fairly well locked into 4th. Mercedes have a slight chance, but they only scored 1 point today. They're a bit off the pace these days. And we are 3 points ahead of McLaren with 2 races to go. As much as I thought we might be just about done with nerfing, as McLaren has been very pacey the last 2 races, they've only scored 10 points and we've scored 12. So we've actually pulled away from them a little bit. As opposed to having a 1 point lead, it's now a 3 point lead with 2 races to go. So more work to do to get beat. Meanwhile, AlphaTauri is pretty much guaranteed 8th place now, as they are nowhere near us and McLaren. And with Alfa Romeo and Haas having yet to score a point, I doubt that they're going to get 29 in the last 2 races. And Alfa Romeo still has the tiebreaker over Haas, and that's where things stand. As for pit stop stuff, well, we did get the 4th and 5th quickest on the day, and we are 5th place, now level with Alpine, so we could jump Alpine for 4th best in the fastest pit stop race over the course of the year. That problem was not good, and no, that was the wing change. Problem was here, so tightening the tires down, lug nut mistake. That is going to do it for this episode, though. I'm Decathlon Gamer. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Have a good one. Be safe out there. Bye for now.